So we're going to talk about three things today. First thing is we're going to talk about the digital divide. Why do we have to talk about the digital divide? Because what we're doing with our drones is we're essentially adapting new technology. We're going digital with the evidence that we're getting. And a big part of that is understanding that what we're going through is actually digital transformation. Ngayon, we can do whatever we want, no? I mean, we can get all these things from our friends. But if we're not in a position in our headspace, if we don't have a culture how to use these things, how to use these tools properly, we're not going to get the maximum benefit out of these tools. Next, we're going to look at, and it's very, very short, we're going to look at the laws, title only. We'll be working together for some time. There'll be opportunities for us to delve deeper into what these laws are. But I just wanted to give you an overview of what we're going to go through. And then finally, given that we have these issues we have these laws, and then we have these issues, these concepts that we have to adopt now. How does that translate into what we have to do, what we have to think about, and the documents, the processes that we have to generate moving forward? One of my favorite science fiction writers is Arthur C. Clarke. He made a lot of, he made these three laws, these concepts that allow us to look into the future. The most famous of that is his third law. And in his third law, he says, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. What does that mean? For us, sa Pilipinas, if there's something and there's technology and no one knows how to use it, it does not exist. Example. Sino sa inyo may video? GCash. Lahat. May GCash. Naalala niyo nung nag-start yung GCash, not everyone had it. And you wanted to buy something with GCash. The store itself, for example, sari-sari store somewhere. May GCash ka, sila wala. Pandemic. So, GCash was the preferred method of transactions. If the person there was yung lola na nagbabantay ng tindahan, ay, hindi ko alam yan. Yung anak ko, yung apo ko, yung nagpapatakbo ng GCash, siyang may alam ng GCash, ako wala akong alam. And you couldn't transact the GCash even though they accept GCash if the apo is there. One of the things that irks me so much is if someone comes up to me and says, "Attorney, may problem ako, blah, 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 blah." And then they'll end it with, hindi kasi ako techie eh, kaya hindi ko siya alam. Sometimes we have the luxury of saying, hindi ako techie, di ko alam, di na ako para alamin yan. And you have the luxury to say that. But looking toward the future, and looking toward a future where these drones will be major part of daily operations when advanced reconnaissance out in the ocean is necessary. We don't have the luxury to say, di ako techie, di ko alam yan. Di ko na para alamin yan. Why does that happen though? Why do people say na, di ako techie? How do they get away with that? That's because whenever these things happen, there's what we call a technology adoption curve. GCash didn't come overnight. It was already there. But something happened, the pandemic, and it drove people to go to it. The other thing that happened was GCash was the first one to do it. To open up, dati GCash Globe lang yan eh. Pag may Globe, saka ka nga magkaka-GCash, di siya open for smart or token text. When GCash opened it to token text, then the floodgates opened. Then everyone had GCash. That's not new. It's not the first time it's happened either. The first time napansin siya was in 1936. In 1936, in the States, there was a big problem. The corn died. And when the corn died, there came these dust storms. Yung ipo-ipo. The severity of those dust storms took away all the topsoil in what was used to be the corn heartland of the United States. What happened? Some scientists, earlier than that, said, you know, we have a better kind of corn. We have a corn that doesn't need as much water. GMO corn. Hybrid corn ang tawag nila. So it started in 1932, but the Dust Bowl happened in 1938. At 1938, only 5% of the land in the United States dedicated to agriculture, to corn, was planted with hybrid corn. If the farmers knew that this corn was there and they could make money and their lives would be saved if they just switched to this corn, why didn't they do it? Nandiyan na eh. Tatanim mo na lang. Why didn't they do it? Why did they insist on sticking to the old ways? There's a curve. Eventually, when people got the hang of it, and all the levels of people who wanted to do it were able to do it. In 22 years, which is nothing in human civilization, in 22 years, everyone was using hybrid corn. Before that, what was everybody saying? The same things you hear from older people when they don't. Ano yan? All this derisive language, divisive language, all this, derisive. All these insults. In the end, those who were able to adapt to the new technology, they were able to recover faster. The Great Depression affected them so much more, this corn area. Hanggang ngayon, more than 100 years later, or close to 100 years later, rather, that area is still feeling the effects of what happened in the Great Depression. So in 1962, someone studied it. His name is Everett Rogers. He made a book called The Diffusion of Innovations Theory. What did we understand from the diffusion of innovations theory? We understood three things. First, we can split the characters who adopt technology into 5 types. Sino ka doon? We'll discuss later. Second, several factors influence the spread of a new idea. And third, adopters look at 5 characteristics in deciding whether to adopt a new idea or innovation. If we don't look at our drones and the way we're going to handle this, this way because there's two kinds of technology that are at play here. There's high technology and low technology. High tech, yes. We might enter a space where the drones fly themselves. That's already happening in civilian drones. You can have a drone that launches, and you tell the drone using AI to go around you and follow you as you walk around. That's possible. We can do that. You have unmanned aerial vehicles na AI-powered lahat. That's possible. But if you don't understand the principles in which we have that information able to use that, turn that data into usable, actionable information, it's useless. It's just a nice, expensive toy. So there are five. First are the innovators. The innovators are the first individuals to adopt the innovation. They're willing to take risks. They're also the youngest. They have the highest social class. They have great financial lucidity. So they understand this is going to cost money. But because they have that money, kaya nila sumugal. It may or may not work. They have the closest contact to scientific sources and interaction with other innovators. Because they have that money, okay, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You get that, sino sa inyo may folding phone? A flip or ano? Meron kayo may flip? Ayan no. Yung bago na yan or noon pa? But if you bought the first generation Samsung Flip or Fold, ouch. Because they're as expensive as the iPhone, but the technology for the screen, it's not all there. So sirain siya. Ganyan naman bagong stuff sirain, tapos masisira yung ano. But how do you get that reputation for brand quality like Toyota, right? Over time. And because they've allowed themselves several years to get the thing right. So you never buy nagkaroon ng bagong version ng Vios next year. Di mo kukunin yun. Kasi bago yun sirain pa yun. You get the version of the Vios that's 2-3 years down the road na di pa nagbabago yung mukha. Kasi sanay na yung doon manufacturing process doon. There's less likelihood that you'll get a lemon. But if you're an innovator, you can say, okay, fine, I'll get the first model of that. I'll get the latest iPhone, Apple has this new virtual reality goggles that cost around 98,000 pesos. That's the first version of it. If you're the innovator, say, okay lang, I'll pay for it. So I'm the first one to have it. Pag nabas ng pangatlong version nun, ako na yung sanay, ako yung lamang, ako yung nasanan. Innovators. Second are early adopters. After the innovators, when the technology is a bit settled, but not everyone's using it. Even commercial drones in the Philippines, DJI, the Chinese drones, I can say that we're still at the early adopters phase. Yesterday, I passed by this shop in Pioneer. They sell Insta360, these 360 cameras. No? It's on a stick, and then they capture everything at the same time. They're also the guys who sell the drones. So may DJI doon. And nilalangaw yung DJI. Because there's no market. And there's no market because people are scared. People who were innovators, who came in first, had their drones fail. But now, if you look at YouTube, almost all the content creators have the drones and they have these drone shots for whatever content pag nasa beach sila or whatever. But it's still not that common. Between the innovators and the early adopters and early majority, there's a gap. So the idea is from that, once you cross the gap, then its progress into adoption becomes inevitable. But what's that gap? Again, if you remember GCash, there was a time before the pandemic, even as they opened it to Smart, no one was still no one was still registering because it was another thing to register. So what? And then the pandemic happened, and that was the key. Everyone started switching. And now you can pay for almost anything with GCash. I'm I've never been someone to carry cash around, even in college. Lalo na ngayon. It's a miracle if I have more than 200 pesos in my wallet. Because everything is GCash. Everything is direct from my bank. I don't do anything anymore to get hand cash. And then you have late majority and people who are more comfortable with what's happened. And then you have the laggards. So you can call them by different names also. If the innovators are tech enthusiasts. Yung laging may latest gadget, as again. Early adopters or visionaries, they're able to see, in the future, this is what we'll do with it. My son, he's 12. Mas matangkad na siya sa akin. But when he was 10, he used to tell me na, Dad, I want a VR headset. Ako naman, arte naman ito. VR headset. Anak ko na lang kita ng PlayStation. Ayaw niya. Gusto niya VR headset. And at that time, wala pang ano for VR. But now, the idea nga is you wear the VR headset and then you have a 65-inch screen right in front of your face. Pwede ka magtrabaho doon, pwede ka manood ng videos doon. After that, you have pragmatists who are the early majority. The people who can say na, okay, medyo mature na yung EVs, pwede nang kumuha. Pwede nang bilhin yung BYD. Then you have conservatives. People who at the start of the pandemic said, when the COVID vaccines were introduced, like, I don't trust this new technology. Not yet. Let it play out with other people. Let them get the vaccine first. I will wait. And then you have the skeptics. And you see that with the COVID vaccine also. They're like, no, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And they'll promote all these conspiracy theories as you go to the later end of the cycle. But what is there that influences the spread of that idea? How do you propel adoption from one point of the curve to another? You have innovation. When you think about the innovation, it has to be relative to what is being innovated. Drones afford us a way to get visual evidence from a perspective that before you needed an aircraft, a plane or a helicopter. Now it's cheaper, now it's safer, and you get higher resolution images because the camera technology is evolving. Who else is doing it? Adopters. Humans are very poor analysts of risk. We have absolutely no idea if anything is safe. The way we know if something is safe, pare okay ba to? Mare okay ba to? Pag ginamit ko to, okay ba siya? Especially us, we're a very vocal culture as opposed to other cultures that are more document-based, like the Germans. That's not good, that's not bad, it just is. We have to be, we have to get that social proofing that something's okay before we get into it. What communication channels were taken? If no one gets to talk about it, no one gets to spread that information, it's never going to get adopted that way. How does that apply to drones? What is your vertical and what is your lateral learning among those who are going to participate in the drone program? The drone training will only be for a handful of people. But with those handful of people, you're supposed to be able to get institutional know-how. How do you secure your institutional know-how? Time. It's never going to happen immediately. You're going to have to change your doctrine. You're going to have to change the way you think and the way you approach problems. And then your social system. What influences do you have on your culture, on your acceptance of the technology? That will determine also, in a way, how much pushback you get. If you're an early adopter, if you're a tech enthusiast, what pushes you? One, compatibility. Is the technology that you're going to adopt, does that fit with what you want to happen? Does that fit with your values? Drones, di na tao yung ilalabas mo dun sa panganib. You're comfortable with your phone and your control sticks. Trialability. May pa-sample. So right now, they have these control platforms for drones. You can slot your phone there, and then the camera from the drone is what you see on your phone. Before that, you flew a drone like an RC plane. You just see it in the sky, and then you control it that way. So there's no way for you to see what the drone captured until it came back. Relative advantage. If I don't get it, what's the opportunity cost? Kung di ko yan gawin, may mawawala ba sa akin? So, for a lot of people, that gets engineered by FOMO, fear of missing out. So if you're vulnerable to manipulation from their social system, FOMO. If you want to be the last person to adopt, because you are, that doesn't factor as much for you. Observability. Are the benefits tangible? Wala mang napansin na iba eh. And so it dies out. Finally, simplicity or complexity. The easier it is for something to learn, then the faster its diffusion. Unfortunately, we live in a world with a lot of complexity. So if we're going to change doctrine, or we're going to learn things about the way drones should be operated within the doctrine, how do we make it to the point where we balance simplicity and complexity so we capture everything? beware the person who tells you there's a simple answer to everything. They're trying to sell you something. I forgot. Okay. Few more things about this side. So, generally, if you skew younger, if you have more money, then you go early adopters or innovators. If you're early majority, you have above average social status, but you're in touch with the early adopters. The lower you are in your social status, the lower you have access to things that empower you, the more to the right you go. So if you're a laggard, you're more focused on traditions, you're a bit older, you have lower social status, and finances are not as open to you. So what does that create? In our society where there's such a big gap between the haves and have-nots, you have what we call a digital divide. The question is, so what? So what if there's a digital divide? The problem is, where is your adversary? Coast Guard is law enforcement. I used to be sort of kind of law enforcement with the Privacy Commission. I had my own forensic lab. I went after the bad guys. Where are the bad guys, quote unquote? When it comes to the curve, the bad guys are always innovators. The bad guys are always, they always have that financial incentive to use the latest tech, to give them the latest advantage. Any advantage that they than we have. It's a race to technology, and they have more incentives to go after whatever advantage they have. We cannot afford to be laggards. And so we undergo digital transformation, and thanks to our friends, we have that opportunity, we have that ability now to transform our processes, our procedures, how we see our role, how we do things. According to the Chief Information Officer of Johnson & Johnson, you can have all these toys. You can even have AI. You can have AI predict where things might happen. But if your leadership and culture aren't at the heart of your transformation, all your toys are not going to work. It's going to fail. So the idea is you want a compliance culture. And I say this all the time when I do data privacy. But at the heart of compliance culture is your integrity. When you do the right thing, because it's the right thing, or because you're afraid of the penalty. What is your mindset? Mas mataas yung kulong, mas matindi yung penalty. People will start doing the right thing? Or is it, if we become more consistent in our enforcement, if people understand that if they do something, there's a certainty that they'll get caught. For you, when you do the right thing, is it because it's the right thing? In law school, we had a term. I think Amba will recognize it. We call it compliance level. Para lang pumasa. So, sinabi, ang kailangan mong i-reach, bawa nag-exercise. When you exercise, you set times and you set goals. Nag-IPCR kayo. May IPCR kayo as Coast Guard. Performance review. Meron, di ba? PQR. Right? May targets yun, di ba? May stretch. May target. When you do things, are you okay with just hitting your target? We're government, we like to move the targets. So when we actually hit what we're doing normally, we're at the very good end. That's standard government for all target setting and evaluation. How many people actually go to this target and that's actually what they do? That's compliance culture. I have friends in other services. I'm not saying this happens with the Coast Guard, but in other services, the flag officers or the senior officers, sometimes when they have schooling, it's the junior officers who do the schooling, not the senior officer who's actually enrolled in the schooling. And I don't know how prevalent it is, but when you see that, does that trigger something in you? Because it's not right. It's dishonest, but it's being done. Why is this important when it comes to using the drones? Because later on, at some point, when using the drones, we'll have strict guidelines. You can only do this, blah, 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 blah. You have to follow this, blah, 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 blah. If you don't understand what you're doing, you're just following the checklist, you're not able to understand what the right thing to do is because it's the right thing to do. All you're doing is avoiding penalties. And therefore, you run the risk of abusing the equipment, of having what you do get nullified in court. And then you get angry and say the court system is useless because I did it according to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, without understanding what is the right thing to do. So if you keep on doing what you're told to do without understanding why you're doing it, that leads to unintentional non-compliance. But compliance culture is tiring. It requires more brain power. In the end, you get compliance fatigue. Pwede na yan. How do you counteract it? One, you need commitment from your leadership, and that commitment needs to be communicated constantly. If you change management, it's called tone from the top. So the guy on top says something, everyone follows because he also follows. Hindi siya do as I say, not as I do. Do as I say, do as I do. Second, you have comprehensive training and education. And the schooling here isn't some abstract general thing. Like for example, if I get called to teach you guys data privacy, in relation to what? data privacy lang. I'm not gonna teach you to go out and become data privacy professionals. I need you to understand how you can apply data privacy in your day-to-day job. By the same, if we have schooling for whatever compliance that you're gonna have, is it enough for you to understand why you're doing what you're doing? Third, encourage open dialogue and reporting. It's harder in a hierarchical environment because the tendency is to take care of things before it reaches command. Therefore, you need to be able to prioritize. You need to be able to triage. What things must be elevated to command? What things can be taken at this level? And then you stick to it, no matter the consequence. Again, integrity becomes important. You lead by example and accountability. What is accountability? Accountability is if there's a requirement, you have evidence that you complied with the requirement. That's hard in our culture. Our culture, especially when it's tainted by people with certain personality disorders, they will abuse structures of power to avoid accountability. How do we keep ourselves honest? I was watching the Draymond Green podcast the other day. Pampatulog. Colorful yung tao eh. But he said one thing that struck me. The best teams, the teams that where he won the championship, they hold everyone, each other accountable. This year, medyo palyado na si Klay Thompson, he's old. So, minove siya to the bench. Tampo siya. But that's the team holding him accountable. You're not who you are anymore. Move to the bench. Maybe you'll be better there. Finally, when it starts working, it's beautiful. Because you get to achieve things. And you don't notice it. Trabaho ka lang. Tapos when you look back, ang dami na pala namin nagawa. And that's where you get your organizational pride. That's where you get your unit pride. Because you guys are people who get things done. But that takes momentum. That takes culture. Culture is a set of expectations that are met over time. If I do A, I will expect B. Over time, consistent yan. May anak man tayo lahat, right? Mahirap magpalaki ng anak. Because more than anything else, and if you love your children hold you accountable. What's the one thing you should never say to your children? You should never say to your children. You should never say, sige anak, bukas bibili natin yan. Si Chuck, the next day, the child will tell you, Daddy, sabi mo kahapon, bukas bibili na natin. Consistency. More than the gravity of the punishment. It's the consistency that sets culture. Okay. So what laws are we looking at? The admin code. Why? Because whatever the drone gets, it's done in the performance of your functions, and that's an official document. O yun na ba kaya? Official document na yun eh. Di okay na. Not yet. Because it's electronic evidence, you have to be able to establish that what you got is the same as what you're presenting whatever court you go to. Doesn't matter if it's the Philippine court or any international tribunal, the principle is the same. You have to be able to show that you can rely on the data that you present. E-Commerce Act. Why E-Commerce Act? Because the E-Commerce Act has the they have the first definition of what a digital signature is. Digital signature is not the one in Adobe where there's a signature. A digital signature is code that gets appended onto a file that locks it from further alteration. I'm sure the ICT is already giving you those signatures also. Data Privacy Act. Why? And when I say these acts, these laws, no, kasama yung implementing rules. Data Privacy Act because it tells you how to protect your data from abuse. Tells you your standards in which how you handle your data. I think, yeah, National Privacy Commission lang ang may standards on data management. So the first set of standards was issued in 2016. The second set of standards was issued in 2023. The standards now are even more strict. And I don't see any of the uniformed services following it. That can create admin liability for you. I know that because the way those standards are structured were based on my experience in the Ombudsman setting standards. Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012. In case something bad happens, how much liability is there in the Cybercrime Prevention Act for negligence? Meron dyan sa Data Privacy Act, but Cybercrime Prevention Act carries a degree higher for negligence. On the part of the Supreme Court and any court that you present, what are their issuances on evidence? And if they make a distinction on electronic evidence? Our Supreme Court is kind of muddy here because the new rules on evidence already include rules for digital evidence. But they said that the old rules for electronic evidence are not repealed. So they kind of complement each other in a strange way. Where we have no clue, for example, they have rules on the use of body-worn cameras in the execution of warrants. What if there's no warrant involved? Therefore, that does not apply. But we can be proactive. We can be ahead of the court. We can say na where it's applicable, we create our own standards. We create our own policies such that if it gets challenged in court, it's even more bulletproof because that's where the court is headed. What will be your compliance pain points from here on in? When we look at our chain of custody documentation, how accurate is it? How much do people follow our chain of custody? When it comes to digital evidence and using it, chain of custody is the everything. You have to be able to establish it, you have to be able to defend it, you have to be able to substantiate what you say when it comes to chain of custody. Why? Because there has to be some assurance that what is being presented is the same. Not substantially the same, is exactly the same. what are the data that we are going to gather? Is it just video? Will there be voice? Will there be geotagging? Whenever drones or other recording equipment take recordings, there's data that's generated. There's data that's generated about the data that's being generated. We call that metadata. It happens to your phones. If you look at your, kahit Android yan, no? Especially if you have iPhone and you don't toggle the privacy settings, whenever you take photos, there's a geotag of your photos. So you can tell, for example, you go to Mount Data for some conference, you take pictures there. You can tell that you were in Mount Data without even looking at the picture, because iPhone will say, you were at Mount Data because these were your coordinates when you took your picture. Earlier, we had the picture taking here. You'll be able to say that we had this thing at AlphaLand because the geotag will be in the picture, even if it's sent to you. So you have to understand what kind of data you're going to be gathering. And understanding that data will allow you to be able to organize that data. So when it comes to data, there's something that we call structured and unstructured data. Unstructured data is more useless. What's an example of unstructured data? Wala kayong file naming convention sa Coast Guard. So pag, for example, may gumawa ng isang MILCOR, for whatever reason, the naming convention inside the computer is different. Everyone has their own naming convention. Dadan pa ng edit. Version 1, version 2, version 3. Version, may kung sino man nag-review. Pero kanya-kanya yan, depende kung sino yung unang gumawa. That's why it's called unstructured data. If you have a system whereby you, for example, this case, may case number, it's easier to find because it's already arranged. Usually when you do these things, you get a drone, your evidence in the case is not just the drone. Sometimes it will be in your body cams. Sometimes it will be in the phones that you may seize at that point. How are you going to go into the preservation of that evidence? How are you going to go and look at that evidence and present it later on and say, now, this is exactly the same evidence that was recovered at that scene? It's easy to understand it in physical evidence because we're used to that. Apply it to a digital space. The rules are different. The principles are the same. The rules are different. Because you have to take into account the nature of what you're preserving. How do you track and document it? Usually there's what we call an evidence management system. It's quite similar to, I don't know if you have ERMS, document management from the ICT in Coast Guard. Yung nalabas may sticker na nilalagay sa official documents, and that's how you know that's the official document. Similar to that, but data management systems. HR has a data management system. Your evidence tracking should have a data management system. How do you safeguard that data from abuse from within and without? How do you make sure that the people who access that data are only the people who access that data? And how do you make sure walang magbubunot ng evidence? It's, as a principle, no, it's easy to visualize pag physical. Ba't ka nandyan sa evidence locker? But digitally, the rule is whatever you can create physically, you can create virtually. Pag virtual na, we have a hard time visualizing it. But those are part of the considerations. How will you process the data? Let's say your drone captures a smaller boat, looking forward into the future. Smaller boat with some, obviously, they broke some law. Are you going to stop gathering evidence at that point with the drone footage? No. You're going to board that vessel, and then you may seize some items. Among the items that you can seize are digital equipment, cell phones, computers. That's important because your phone can tells you more than anything. Is your spouse cheating on you? The phone will know. If the phone knows that your spouse is cheating on you, what more the other illegal activities that the phone can record? I went to the Korean police digital forensics lab as part of my exposure with the Privacy Commission. Galing. There's some bad elements who will, in an attempt to destroy the phone and the evidence inside, they douse it in lighter fluid and then they light the phone. Their forensics team is able to do chip-off forensics, meaning, ano ba? It's half the size, it's around the size of this DOTR logo in the paper. That's the amount, that's the surface area of the chip you're trying to destroy inside your phone. So kahit barilin mo yung phone mo, point blank, you're most likely not hitting that chip. Even if your phone burns for a long time, most likely you're not hitting that chip. But how you process that data, chip of forensics, that has to be detailed in your chain of custody. How were you able to extract the data? I was involved in the first SIM swap cases. That was in 2015. At that time, so nahuli yung suspect, nasa custody na ng NBI. Tapos yung ginawa ng apprehending officer, yung cellphone ng suspect, nilagay niya sa plastic. Evidence daw. Tapos, sabi ng suspect, pwede pong pahingi ng cellphone, tatawagin ko lang yung nanay ko. So, inabot naman ni ate yung cellphone sa suspect. Pagbalik, burado na lahat. At that time, we have no appreciation of getting as much digital forensics evidence as we can from the devices of the people we apprehend for breaking the law. Will you have the same appreciation when you board the vessel? Finally, and most importantly, not just because you're law enforcement means you're above the law. When you process the data that you're processing, is that the minimum amount that's required for your processing? Professor Reg was telling me to tell you that she's been complaining about that you've been over-collecting data in your sign-up sheets. Whoever is the data protection officer of the Philippine Coast Guard has to watch out for all the sign-up sheets that are collected. Bakit? Number one, if there's over-collection of data, that's a problem. That's At this point, that's grave misconduct already. Serious matter, established rule. Second, if someone grabs that paper, the sign-up sheet outside, crumples it, goes outside and throws it in the wastebasket and misses, and hits the wastebasket, it goes into the trash can, just crumpling that paper, then whoever's involved in crafting that sign-up sheet faces criminal liability. Sign-up sheets may look innocent and because it's part of our culture. Kasi kailangan ng HR, kailangan ng COA. But in terms of organizational weakness, that's one of the big organizational weaknesses. So if you don't have that compliance culture, we don't have that understanding of are we doing the right thing because it's the right thing, we'll never be able to use the new toys that we have correctly. Marami na akong sinabi. But what do I want you to remember from today? First, at some point, we'll have to standardize the documentation of whatever evidence gathering that we have when we do operations. Whether how we follow that to a T, how we're able to go away from it when necessary, just create the justifications, all the trees, decision trees moving away from it and back to it. Those have to be mapped out. Second, there has to be some focus on making whatever process document that we come out after everything is said and done easy to implement and comprehend. That way you get better adoption, you get better compliance, you get better results. But it leads to far better results. To make that happen, your leadership is key. The more senior you are, the greater the burden is on you to provide that example